I want you to get together.
I thought that this was something maybe to bring up to you and your audience
Sure.
is the harrowing of hell, which in some of my research, it looks like for 700 years, this might have been a part of most churches and talked about. Um, I guess the Gospel of Nicodemus talks about this. And I recently found out, uh, shout out my best friend Matt, for Mel Gibson, who made The Passion of the Christ back in the day, most people remember. There's a part two coming out, and it's going to be in 2025, next year, and it's about the harrowing of hell. And for people who don't know, the harrowing of hell is when Jesus descends into hell, which we can get into too, because it seems like in the past there was a lot of descriptions of hell, almost like Dante's with different levels. People talked about Abraham's bosom, like this first level, like the good part of hell, because nobody was allowed into heaven.
Mm.
So there's like a lot that I'm like finding out about this when I started looking into this stuff that I find interesting, and probably you and your audience will. So yeah, Mel Gibson is actually, his movie's going to be about the harrowing of hell. We know he's a big time Catholic, and this was a big part of the early Catholic Church's teachings and Thanksgiving and a lot. I mean, not Thanksgiving, Easter and a lot was about this stuff.
Mm.
Um, you know, this limbo purgatory was like Abraham's bosom. So, another thing was I don't know if it was like a week ago for you, you did a video and I seen you had these medieval paintings on like the thumbnail. And one of the paintings is actually the harrowing of hell. And it was it's Jesus when he goes, the harrowing of hell is when he goes into hell, the first people that he meets is Adam and Eve. They've been there the whole time, you know, and they're the first people that he releases from hell. And he goes down there, the demons are fleeing from, like, the demons can't do nothing. Jesus goes down there, conquers hell, and he goes and he gets all the just out of hell. And you would think that this would be such an amazing, cool story that that the Catholic Church and Christians should be talking about and celebrating. But yet you don't ever hear about this. And so when I found out about this, I thought bring it up to you and your audience, and see if you guys are into this. But
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a huge talking point I've talked about many times with other guests. This idea, when Christ first died on the cross, he went down to Sheol, to Abraham's bosom to release the righteous, save them first, and even he says in the middle of Matthew, the dead rose out of the grave, great righteous men who, and leaders and spirit were just walking around talking to people, and it was witnessed by thousands of people. Like, what is going on? The dead have risen, and that's the result of what Jesus did. He went down there and released these saints, if anything, that's what they are, that taking part in the first
yeah,
resurrection.
I mean, how awesome! Again, just
Yeah.
how awesome is Jesus, and an amazing story that we should talk about and
Mm.
share.
No,
Again, just show how awesome.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how Mel Gibson plays that out as a Catholic
Yeah.
who's a part of the industry. There's got to be a rub somewhere. There's got to be something.
Well, he got a lot of blowback from the first one, right? From the Jewish community,
Well,
because
yeah, yeah.
Jews felt really bad and it made Jews look bad. But this one, it seems like he's basically right now down to two scripts. And one of them, he says, if he goes with, people are going to feel like it's like a bad acid trip. Like he doesn't even know if they could pull it off because it's so insane. Like if you really get into the harrowing of hell and thinking about Jesus going in there and the demons running and him freeing Adam and Eve and all these souls, like that is awesome. I hope he does a good job, and I'm excited.
Mm.
So,
Well,
um,
it was God's promise, wasn't it? That to Adam and Eve, I'm going to fix this. It's just going to take a while. Okay, you're gonna have to give me 5,000 years, basically. Like, but I'm gonna fix this. What's happened here,
yeah,
and that
and it
was.
seems like Abraham's bosom was like a little bit different. Like it wasn't like hell,
Mhm.
but it was like, a little bit less than earth or something. It was just like,
But
it wasn't
from what I
heaven,
understand,
but it wasn't heaven. It definitely wasn't heaven,
but
you
there
know.
wasn't any way to heaven prior to this, from what I'm
Yes.
aware of. It was everyone, even all ancient religions, including even Egyptians, have this concept of an underworld, Hades, Sheol, and it's not. It's
Yeah.
like it's not necessarily like brimstone and fire and pitchforks and demons. It's more like a void of nothingness, where the dead go and they're there. And it seems like you said there was like two parts from a Christian angle. There was like Abraham's bosom, which was like just a boring,
Limbo purgatory.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a holding place, and then there was the slightly less comfortable holding place where everyone else had to go. And it even says that they sleep in death. They're not like communicating with people, or that's why it says don't communicate with spirits, because you're not talking to your dead relatives, you're just talking to demons pretending to be them, because the dead sleep. There's no point. Divination's all illusion and smoke and mirrors, for that reason. But then it seems after what Christ did, it was then he gave a path to the Father in heaven, because it's completely blew it wide open. Conquered death in a true sense. And now when you die, people say, well, no, you don't go and sleep anymore. You can go to heaven. Or perhaps people argue you still go into this final resting place until judgment if you didn't quite get into heaven. That again, that's a theological debate for another time. I
guess if you're still waiting for Jesus, if you're waiting for Jesus, right, and you don't believe the millennial kingdom, then maybe you are thinking, right, that they're still sleeping and we're waiting for Jesus.
Well, that's
right?
what a lot of people argue, exactly, yeah, but it seems like that might not be the case anymore, and it literally is a sense of when you die, you either do go to heaven or hell or judgment or whatever that means. But I think there is like a more of a, when we all die, there's still like a holding thing going on. This is just so saith Paul, thinketh Paul, not so saith the Lord. I don't know exactly what happens when we die perfectly, but it seems like maybe there might still be like a holding thing going on, but it's more like a blink of an eye. Like you die and then you're there in front of great white throne judgment. No matter when you die in history, that's how it feels to you, like an instant, and there's no like, oh, I need to wait for another 1,000 years for everyone else to die first before I get to get. I don't think it feels like that. I think it's more of a death, great white throne judgment. Everyone stands there at the end of time. It's done, and then it's the new heaven and new earth is created. The book of life, it's all that stuff. Then the lake of fire situation starts to get involved, But the idea that when Jesus died, he went to this holding cell is something. I had the hijacker on talking about it, and he had some crazy ideas. So he thinks, but I think that they're well within the realms of conspiratorial thinking. So it wasn't that crazy for me, but I know a lot of people out there would think it would be. But he was basically saying it seems like not only did he go down there to free the saints first and the righteous and let them take part in the first resurrection, as it says in Revelation. Blessed are those who take part in the first resurrection, because the second death has no bite to them. They don't have to suffer that situation, and they get to rule with Christ for 1,000 years. Wonderful, But then it says the rest of the dead live not again till the end of the 1,000 years. So at the end of it, and hijacker said when he went down there, and this might happen in the film for all we know that he's going to make, But it's he went there, he preached to them and says, "You guys, you're going up now. You're free. I've come for you. I'm keeping my promise to Adam and Eve from the beginning. The righteous, everyone who's helped me throughout the way, the prophets, everyone, you're all coming now. It's all paid off. Come reign with me, for 1,000 years, whether that's in heaven or a physical reign on earth." Again, we could argue whether that's the case or not. But then he also turned to the rest of the dead and says, "I'm coming back for you." Okay, and people would say, well, that's not right. It's appointed for a man to die once and then judgment. But then that is Christ giving a judgment. He's going down there and he's giving a judgment to them. Sure. He's saying, "I'm going to give you a second chance," is basically what he said. So you have one more chance, and this is what the hijacker said. He basically, "I'm going to wipe all your memories. You're not going to remember who you were in the past life or anything like that. You're not going to know what's going on. As far as you're concerned, this is the first time you're going to be on earth. And the devil's going to be released. There's going to be sin, there's going to be temptation, and there's going to be the word. There's going to be Jesus. The gospel will be everywhere. You cannot get away from it. You can make moral decisions and the choice. Yeah. And that's what's going to...
Can't plead ignorance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what the rest of the dead are. It's basically us, in a way. If we are in the little season, it is all ifs, and thens type of situation. But that's what he's theorizing. That's kind of what's going on in the little season. And he says the millennial kingdom wasn't just a show of power for Christ because he wanted to have a bit of fun. It was more of we have 1,000 years to build out the infrastructure of the earth. We need to build something that will last for when these billions of people turn up in 1,000 years. Okay, we need to build everything for them. Because if we don't give them anything, they're just going to turn up with nothing and kill each other for resources straight away. Because they're evil people. These are bad people.
And then then think they came from a monkey on a spinning ball. And
Well, eventually that's what ended up happening. Yeah, but it seems like this is the story he's telling, and I'm kind of recounting it now in this show. But
yeah, no, I
you
like
know,
it. I like it.
and he's saying that's why the millennial reign had to be a physical kingdom. It was to build in preparation for the rest of the dead. The saints got to live there in that time, great, and rule over the people who lived during that time, great, and have a prosperous, peaceful 1,000 years. But the purpose was to prepare for what's coming next, the rest of the dead who live not again till the 1,000 years was ended. Okay, but Satan was also released. And I imagine Satan was suddenly just released onto an earth that's been built out with all these incredible buildings everywhere, with canals all over the place. Christian
empire everywhere.
You know what I mean?
Like, where...
and then he gets to it, doesn't he? He's like, well, I'm going to destroy this. But it's kind of, how am I going to do this? So he has to lie about where things came from, and he starts writing new histories. He has his secret societies who are waiting for him to be released, who had to live through the millennial reign. They're there waiting for him. He says, we're here for you now. We've been in hiding for 1,000 years, but you're released. We're here to serve you. And he's like, right, you need to rewrite the history books. You need to control the dead. We need to get anybody who remembers the millennial reign together and put them in orphan and separate the children from them, put them in insane asylums. It's like Satan just went at it to rewrite everything. And
it was like start civil war everywhere. Wars,
nation against nation. He started whispering in people's ears saying, you deserve to take over that land. You know what I mean? Now Christ isn't here anymore. Who's going to rule? It should be you. But he was saying that to all of them. So they all just went at each other and started killing each other. Massive power struggles, huge civil wars, buildings and cities just burning down everywhere. Remove as much history as possible. And it seems like that's pretty much what would happen, right? If Satan was released into a post-kingdom world, which was just beautiful and perfect and built out everywhere. Then you start claiming false histories about where these things came from, you know what I mean? And you resurrect a new Roman Empire and all these type. It all fits, doesn't it? It's like you can spin a pretty epic narrative here that seems to fit our situation, and you can square it biblically just by those passages in Revelation. But there are a lot of people, obviously established Christians and institutions, and people who maybe haven't heard these concepts before, who really do not want to hear it. They are not interested in that idea, and they'll say those are just made up fables. You're just making stuff up, And it's kind of, well, you clearly haven't been in the conspiracy realm for very long, because there's a lot of other things outside of the biblical narrative that back this up massively. Whether you're a Christian or not, this also seems to be the situation we're in. And the Tartarian people would say, there's resets everywhere. Everything seems to be reset. Like all history's all a lie. Our chronology's all off. This doesn't make any sense, And they just haven't contextualized it through the Christian narrative yet, And that's kind of what we're doing here, or at least trying to. But anyway, I went on for a while. I'll leave you out.
I want you to get together